Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with an updated Magicka Nightblade build for the Stonethorn DLC. And this is a good one, you guys. Solo or group DPS, tons of damage, self-healing, and survivability. This build is a lot of fun to play. It's getting some major buffs for the Stonethorn patch. So stick around. As usual, we'll be going over the stats, the gear set options, skills, champion points. We'll talk about the outfit style and a basic rotation. So keep it right here. Let's get started. All right, everybody, we are back on the Magicka Nightblade for the Elder Scrolls Online with a look at an updated PVE build, a solo/group build, great defense, healing, and a lot of damage. So let's go ahead and buff up and check out our stats here on the build. Sitting at about 38,000 max Magicka, 19k max health, almost 12,000 max stamina, 1,300 Magicka recoveries, looking good. Spell damage will be closer to 3k fully buffed with our back bar glyph, 65% spell critical. And in terms of our resistances with our shadow abilities, about 19,000 spell resistance and 16,000 physical resistance. Of course, we have 64 points into max Magicka, being a Magicka Nightblade, running the Shadow Mundus here for the extra crit damage and healing. Very nice on the Magicka Nightblade. Major Prophecy, we'll talk about where that comes from. And then the blue food, max health and max Magicka. Just to get those stats at a nice level for solo gameplay. Now, in this particular setup, I am using spell power potions. Now, that is up to you with a couple of skill changes. You can run just the basic Magicka potions, or you can run tri-stat potions, which is pretty nice while soloing too. But just for a very easy setup, spell power potions is nice if you have access to those. Now, finally, in terms of the race setup on this build, for Nightblade, I am still a fan of running Breton. Breton just gives you the nice cost reduction of Magicka abilities. And since we are not using like a lightning heavy attack on this build, we're using Flame Staff, both bars. We're casting and light attack weaving. So I think the extra cost reduction on your Magicka skills is pretty nice if you have it. If you don't, it's okay. You can make up for it with like your jewelry glyphs and stuff. You also have obviously the max Magicka, 2,000 there. The extra spell resistance is pretty nice, especially while solo. And the extra Magicka recovery is nice. So Breton would be one of my top choices. Of course, High Elf is good for the extra spell damage. Even Dark Elf for the extra max stats. And Khajiit is actually going to be pretty nice on Magicka Nightblade as well, since we are very, very crit focused. Even more so in the Stonethorn DLC. So we'll talk about that in a couple minutes too, about how some of the Nightblade skills and passives are changing. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the gear sets next. Starting with our offensive sets, something that's changing for the Stonethorn DLC coming up very soon is a lot of these older sets are actually getting buffed. So check out the War Maiden set. This is from the Morrowind chapter. And it's always been pretty good on Nightblades and also Templars. But here's what it does. Spell critical, max Magicka spell damage. And it used to be 400 spell damage. Now in the Stonethorn DLC, it's going to be 600 extra spell damage to your magic damage abilities. Now just to clarify, that's not all magic abilities. It's the skills that actually do magic damage. So not fire, shock, or frost, not elemental damage, just pure magic damage. And Magicka Nightblade, that's basically all your damaging skills do magic damage. You can see an example right there, Impale. That's going to get buffed 600 spell damage by the War Maiden set. So if you didn't have this already, definitely go pick this up before Stonethorn DLC hits. I'm imagining this is going to get a little bit pricier on Guild Traders because, like I said, this is looking very nice for Magicka Nightblades, you guys, and even Magicka Templars, I would say, maybe a few other classes as well. So for this particular build, I'm running 5 pieces on the body. So this is a light armor set. It's going to be light chest, waist, hands, legs, and feet. All divines if you can get it with max Magicka as the enchants. Now for our second 5-piece set, I wanted to point out another set that's being updated for the Stonethorn DLC. This one is actually a crafted set, a very good crafted set called Innate Axiom. I believe this is only 2 traits to craft. from the Clockwork City DLC, and this is getting buffed a little bit as well with some extra bonuses here. So this is now giving us weapon and spell damage, Magicka and stamina for the 3-piece, spell critical and weapon critical, and then the 5-piece bonus adds 400 spell and weapon damage to your class abilities. So again, this is going to be very strong on some classes that just depend on their class skills more than anything else. And I think Magicka Nightblade fits into that very well. We're only using, I think, maybe 1 or 2 weapon skills. Everything else is going to be a class damage skill. And the nice thing too about the Nightblade, also similar to Templar, is that the more damage we are doing, actually the more healing that you are doing. So in terms of this being a solo build, the fact that I'm putting 2 damage sets on is actually increasing my survivability. So this is looking very nice in terms of the Stonethorn DLC coming up. I do like how they've changed some of the stats around on this 2-piece crafted set. Only 2 pieces to craft. It's pretty strong. So I am going to use that on just the front bar staff. You could use it on both staffs if you like. And then definitely the jewelry pieces. In terms of the staff trait here, I think Precise is going to be very good. You'll notice the Precise value has actually been buffed in the Stonethorn DLC as well. 8.6% spell critical is looking pretty strong. I think a lot of builds might be moving to Precise, though we might see some changes with crit overall. So we'll have to kind of wait and see on that one. But Precise for now. And then in terms of my jewelry here, again, 3 pieces on the jewelry because staff counts for 2. I'm going to actually use 3 Bloodthirsty here. It's going to do tons of damage when in execute range. And 2 spell damage enchants with 1 extra magic recovery. If you're in a group setting, you can probably drop the magic recovery and go full spell damage. Now in terms of the monster set, a nice option just for soloing as usual is going to be the Ice Heart set. This is going to add to our spell critical. You can see the 1-piece spell critical bonus there is really nice on Magicka Nightblade. And then when we do critical damage, which we pretty much will all the time, you have a 20% chance to gain that 6,000 damage shield for 6 seconds. That's with our champion points active. Does a little bonus frost damage as well. But just a really nice overall survivability monster set if you want to do the solo Magblade build. If you're in a group setting, you can actually run maybe 2 pieces of spell critical. You could also run the Zon monster set. Whatever you want to do there for some more damage. This is going to be our main defensive set on the solo setup. In terms of the weights here, since we do want 5-1-1, if you have your Undaunted unlocked, make sure you pick up a heavy chest and a medium shoulder. That's going to give you the best traits there with that setup. Max health is going to be nice on the headpiece for soloing. That's about an extra 1,000 max health on the build. And then stamina. For the shoulder, why not? That's what it comes with. Again, divines on everything if you can, just to make that spell critical damage a little bit higher. Finally, the back bar. This is optional, but the Maelstrom Inferno staff, just the regular version, which you can now get in normal Maelstrom Arena, it's going to provide a nice buff to this build in terms of your light attack damage, thanks to the Crushing Wall bonus there on the staff, making your light attacks do some substantial more damage when you're using the Elemental Blockade or Wall of Elements skill, so that's really nice. But regardless, whatever you use, make sure it is infused with a spell damage enchant. It's going to be about 600 extra spell damage when you're fully buffed with your spell power potion. All right, so that is the setup. War Maiden on the body. We've got Innate Axiom on the weapon and jewelry. Maelstrom Staff back bar is optional, and then Ice Heart is the monster set. Jumping into skills next, talking about the front bar. We're going to start with Inner Light, just for some extra bonus Magicka and spell crit. That is from the Mage's Guild skill line. First ability that you get there. And this gives us 5% bonus max Magicka, up to 7% with the passives unlocked. Plus Major Prophecy, that's an extra 10% spell critical, basically. Though we don't need that on the spell power potion. It does not stack. That will be a nice option if you choose a different potion, maybe like a regular Magicka potion or Tri-Stat potion. Second ability is going to be Impale from the Assassination skill line. This is the first ability that we get here. Impale, the Magicka morph. This is going to be our Execute skill. Deals up to 300% more damage to enemies below 25% health. And this, along with the Bloodthirsty trait, you guys, even on a solo build, you can hit well over 50k for a single Impale because we have so much critical damage built into the Nightblade class. We'll talk about that. That's getting buffed a little bit more in fact, in the Stonethorn DLC. So just really nice to run and execute, especially against bosses. I would recommend that for sure. Dampen Magic is going to be next. This is from the Light Armor skill line. This is our damage shield. And I put this here because we are a little bit squishier in terms of our survivability. You can see this has a nice tooltip on it, almost 12,000 damage shield for 6 seconds. That is getting buffed a little bit by champion points, but that's pretty nice against solo bosses where you're taking all the damage yourself. We have so much passive healing, honestly, that it's almost not needed. But it's going to be nice just for some tricky situations when you need to get out of trouble. I would recommend that. Now, what else would you put here? Let's say maybe in a group situation, or maybe for, like an AoE, clearing through a dungeon maybe, or trash fights. Another great skill to put on your front bar from Siphoning skill line, it's going to be Sap Essence, just for that extra AoE magic damage. That's the last ability there in Siphoning. Very nice skill. But like I said, that's not single target, that's more AoE focused. So let's keep Dampen Magic there for now. And then talk about our main spammable Swallow Soul. This is also from Siphoning, actually, the first ability that you get here. Doing about 10,000 magic damage unbuffed right now, and this does heal us for 38% of the damage done every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Now just at base, that's about 3,000, right? 3,000 to 4,000 healing every 2 seconds. But that's not even taking into account a critical hit. Where that's going to be almost double the amount of healing, like 5,000 to 6,000 health back every 2 seconds. That's where you really get the healing back on this build. You almost don't need a burst heal. That's why I don't have one slotted really, except for our next ability. So the healing, thanks to this skill, is through the roof. It's definitely going to help out with the survivability, so make sure you keep this up. You need to cast it at least once every 10 seconds to keep that heal rolling in. Final normal ability here on the front bar is going to be Merciless Resolve. That is from the Assassination skill line, last ability here. And this is the stacking buff of the Nightblade class, kind of the signature move of Nightblades. Now, it is getting changed in the Stonethorn DLC, which you can see here on my tooltip. Instead of reducing our damage by 2% for every stack, it's now doing increased critical damage and healing by 2% for every stack. Still 5 stacks at the most. So that means you get an extra 10% critical damage and healing. So again, this is going to affect all of our abilities. You can use the bow proc for even more burst damage. You can see right there. And you also get a 50% heal back when you fire off that bow. So I mentioned this as kind of the burst heal. That's a lot of healing. I mean, it's going to be over 10,000 healing for sure. And if it crits, quite a bit more than that. So you have a pretty reliable burst heal while having this up. So just keep that in mind as one of your healing options. It's very strong. And then finally, the ultimate on the front bar. You have some options here. Now, I do like Soul Harvest just most of the time. I mean, this does good magic damage. By the way, magic damage on everything, right? Just to point that out, since we are using War Maiden. Our Execute does magic damage. Our DPS Spammable does magic damage. Our burst here does magic damage, and the ultimate does magic damage. So yeah, War Maiden on the Magicka Nightblade, pretty strong now, even more so than ever in the Stonethorn DLC. So this is nice, not just for the initial damage, but of course for the extra bonus damage here. Right there at the top, increases your damage against the enemy by 20% for 6 seconds. So something that you'll see me do in the gameplay quite a bit is make sure I save this for when my Merciless Resolve bow is ready. Hit Soul Harvest first to get that 20% bonus damage, and then boom, hit the Merciless Resolve, the bow proc there, Assassin's Will. That's going to hit 20% more, doing even more damage, even more healing. And then, of course, you want to fire off a Swallow Soul as well, because if that's doing more damage based off your ultimate being fired, you're going to get even more healing over the 10-second duration of that buff. So all of these kind of work together, which you'll see in the rotation in just a minute. Swap over to the back bar now. Starting off with Elemental Blockade. This is from the Destruction Staff skill line. Now, this is not magic damage since we're using a Fire Staff. It's going to be flame damage, but we're really not using it for the damage. You can see the tooltip here is going to be fairly low, 1,000 damage every second. What we're basically using this for, the chance to proc burning, and then the extra spell damage that we get off of our back bar glyph. So you'll want to keep this up as much as possible. That's why I chose the Blockade morph for the extra duration, rather than the 10-second duration. So if you're comfortable with it, you can do the 10-second buff as well. Then next up, more magic damage. We've got Twisting Path, which is our Nightblade AoE magic damage over time. Very nice. In terms of AoE damage, and then the extra movement speed is actually pretty nice for moving around through a dungeon. You can basically just cast that every 4 seconds to get some extra movement speed. This is from Shadow. Third ability there in the Shadow skill line. And we do get some nice passives from having to use this as well, so we'll talk about those in a minute. Next up, another Shadow ability, Dark Shade, is going to be very nice if you're interested in the solo gameplay. It's going to be the last ability there in the Shadow skill line. And why this is really important, you guys, is I always recommend if you want to solo an ESO, try to get this debuff. It's called Minor Maim. It reduces your enemy's damage by 15% for 4 seconds. You can get this through some other weapon abilities. Some class abilities have it. And both Stamina and Magicka Nightblade can get it from this skill called Dark Shade. So it's also AoE Minor Maim, which means if you're dealing with a dungeon pull or you're trying to clear your way through a dungeon, you're going to debuff all the enemies in an area around your shade. This is what he looks like. And then he will, every once in a while, do kind of a spinning AoE tornado attack. That's the debuff. And it's really good to have anytime you want to reduce your enemy's damage. So I definitely recommend keeping that up as much as possible. Next up, Siphoning Attacks is from the Siphoning skill line. It's going to be the second to last skill here. And this is really just some nice health. Since we are going to be light attacking basically between every skill, you get about 1,500 health back every second or so. And then some nice extra Magicka sustain. I think this, combined with Breton, some of our cost reduction, using our potion correctly, as well as Elemental Drain, it's going to make it fairly easy to sustain on this build, even with full spell damage glyphs. So just make sure you keep that buff up. It's very important. Then finally, Elemental Drain for the boss debuff. This is from Destruction Staff. Second to last ability there. So this does reduce an enemy's spell resistance by 50 to 80, making all of your skills do more damage. Remember, if you do more damage on a Nightblade, that's also equal to more healing with skills like Swallow Soul and Merciless Resolve, like we saw in the front bar. So make sure the enemy is debuffed, especially if you're soloing a boss. That's going to be very important. And you get the extra Magicka back. So the Minor Magicka Steal debuff, 300 Magicka back every 1 second. That's no joke. That's really strong. Make sure you keep that up as well. And finally, for the ultimate back bar, you do have some options here. Obviously, a lot of the time I'm going to be using Soul Harvest, especially one-on-one versus a boss, but for more AoE situations, it's nice to have an AoE ultimate on the back bar. You can put Elemental Rage there. That's from the Destruction Staff skill line. Very nice ultimate, very strong, especially for things like Maelstrom Arena, where you need to burn down bosses quickly. If you're more in like just a dungeon clearing mode, maybe a public dungeon or something easy like that, Soul Tether is going to be very nice for the extra stun, damage, and healing. So that's another good option there. So that is our active skills. Let's talk about the passives next. What do you need on a Magicka Nightblade to make it all work? Well, as far as the assassination passives, some of these are getting updated. For example, Master Assassin now gives you weapon and spell damage if you're flanking an enemy. So we most likely won't get this if we're solo, though this is going to be nice for group play. Executioner is also giving a major buff in the Stonethorn DLC. Check this out. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by you, you restore 1876 Magicka or Stamina, whichever is higher. So I believe this used to be you had to damage them with one of your assassination skills. Now it's just any damage. It's anything. It's damage over time. It could be from your, elemental blockade. It could be from your shade, proccing the debuff. It could be literally anything. And if that enemy dies, you get almost 2,000 Magicka back. This is going to be so good, you guys, for sustain, especially in group dungeons with lots of enemies. Sustain is going to be a breeze on Nightblade, so hopefully they keep that the same. Pressure points has not changed. You get some bonus critical, which is going to be nice on the front bar since we have so many assassination abilities there. And then Hemorrhage, definitely keep this. This does increase your critical damage by 10%. So even more critical damage stacked with like the Shadow Mundus, with our Merciless Resolve proc. And the Shadow skill line, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You do get some nice recoveries here for being a Nightblade. 15% to all recoveries is great. And then Shadow Barrier, this is something that we need to think about in terms of keeping your armor buff active. You only get your armor buff Major Resolve for 6 seconds at base, though that does increase slightly by having heavy armor slotted. So I have 1 piece of heavy. So now my duration is 7.5 seconds. And that's really how I'm going to get my armor buff on this build. Now, if that's too tough for you to maintain, remember you can slot an extra piece of heavy armor, so basically 2 pieces of heavy, and that'll be up to about 9 seconds, which is a lot more manageable. And then Dark Veil, this just increases like our Shade and our Twisting Path, so that is nice to get that last passive there. In terms of siphoning, very good passives here, you guys. Some of the best in the game, in fact. Catalyst, 20 ultimate back when you drink a potion. So keep that in mind. You want to save your potion for right after you use your ultimate. That way you'll get that quick 20 ultimate back. Then Magicka Flood. This is very nice too. 8% max Magicka. That's why Magic Nightblades usually have higher Magicka than most classes, thanks to this passive. Soul Siphoner is nice as well for the extra healing done. And then Transfer gives us more ultimate. All these passives, make sure you get all of those. Very nice. Destruction Staff, obviously, we'll want all of these since we're running 2 Flame Staffs. And then Light Armor, you want all of these as well. Extra cost reduction, recovery, all of that stuff is very good. In terms of guild skill lines, yes, we are running a Mage's Guild ability on the front bar. Technically, you could run 2 if you ran like Shooting Star as your ultimate if you wanted to. But either way, I think the Mage's Guild passives are good, so I would recommend those. But either way, the best one is definitely Magicka Controller, giving you the bonus Max Magicka and Magicka Recovery. I would recommend that one. Sigil Order we're not using, though you could. Definitely pick up your Undaunted passives if you can. Undaunted Metal here is giving you 6% bonus Magicka, Stamina, and Health. Great, great passive. Assault and Support, your PvP skills not needed on this build. Of course, Racial skills, you want all of those. And then Alchemy Medicinal Use for the extra potion duration. Let's talk about champion points quickly and then go over the rotation. This is going to be set up for soloing primarily, so just keep that in mind. You might want to tweak these a little bit for groups. In the green tree, 31 into Warlord, 21 Sprinter, 100 Arcanist, 56 into Mooncalf, 31 Shadow Ward and Tumbling. In the blue tree, we've got 23 into Blessed, 51 Elfborn, 49 Elemental Expert, 41 Spell Erosion, 19 into Staff Expert, 56 Master at Arms, and 31 into Thaumaturge. Over in the red tree, we've got 66 into Ironclad, 17 Light Armor Focus, 43 Hardy and Elemental Defender, 34 Thick-Skinned, 11 into Quick Recovery, and then 56 into Bastion for the 20% bonus to damage shields. Very nice CP node if you have the points to spare. Definitely pick that up. Let's see what else. Outfit style quickly, if you're curious. It's going to be the Malakath robe, Malakath legs. It's from the Rothgar DLC. We've got the Khajiit gloves, Sigil Order helmet. I think that's the heavy version. And then for the weapons here, we've got the Glenmerle weird staff. All right, so let's do a quick rotation. In terms of buffs, make sure you start with your Merciless on the front bar and then buff Siphoning Strikes. Debuff the boss of your solo. That's Elemental Drain. And then you want to just kind of light attack. Always remember to light attack between your abilities. Starting on the back bar with our 2 dots and our Shade Pet. Now here on the front bar, you can see my bow is ready. I'm going to go ahead and ultimate to buff it. Proc my bow. Swallow Soul and then use my shield there, all in the front bar. Can go ahead and bar swap back, rebuff. Again, make sure you're light attacking here. And then my ultimate's ready again. Ultimate. Make sure your bow is ready. Swallow Soul. Shield. That's kind of the rotation there. Let's go ahead and finish that off. Bow's ready. My ultimate's not, but I'll just keep going here, light attacking. My ultimate should be ready here. So again, ultimate, bow, swallow soul. Keep our shield up because why not? Getting close to execute range. So let me make sure he's debuffed. You can see I'm barely taking any damage here. Let me use my potion, get my ultimate ready. Bow. Make sure I got swallow soul and let's execute. Again, make sure I had swallow soul there for the extra healing. You can see I'm getting 11,000 healing every 2 seconds. Crazy damage and healing on the Magicka Nightblade. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this Magicka Nightblade build update for the Stonethorn DLC. Magicka Nightblade is looking pretty good, so I hope you guys like this one. And of course, if you did, don't forget to crush that like button. Definitely helps out the channel. Make sure you're subscribed here if you're not already for more build videos and ESO guides just like this one with those notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. If you'd like to support the channel further, there'll be links below to my social media as well as the new website. The website has written versions of all my builds as well as some other guides for ESO with all the skills, champion points, gear, everything listed in case you need to check that out later. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, and I will see you around in the next video.